from Harvard who, makes an analysis, a comment about something that could be hiding. The 13 Atlas is a comet currently being studied, but much data is still missing because of its exotic nature and the potential information it could provide. But beyond this, are there things or situations in which right now the 13 Atlas is already surpassing? And maybe maybe for a couple of months now, it has surpassed the logic of natural comets. Obviously, the consensus is still that it is a natural comet. And until the data is more conclusive or more public, some of these versions could change, but it could also be that it's such an exotic comet that it simply has this or shows this very curious, very strange behavior. What you're saying today is quite interesting, because it would show that the dust cloud that 3 and Atlas have, or what appears to be dust, might actually be something else. Astrophysicist Avi Loeb suggests that the interstellar object 3 and Atlas could be covered with such a dense dust cloud. What is the nucleus hiding from the sun? So basically, is that why we haven't been able to see the nucleus until now? It's because this cloud would be hiding it so densely that the sun can't get in, and it protects, let's say, the nucleus. This is quite interesting because it would mean, or there could be the possibility that this is no longer natural. In what sense? In the sense that it would take too much material to be able to cover the comet like that. Without this shield, it would already be melted, the core would be split. Avi Loeb says that the 3 Atlas can't be seen clearly because it's surrounded by a curtain of dust that scatters sunlight before it reaches the surface. Observational data indicate that the antipolar jet or the object's antitail contains dust particles. That would be much larger than normal. Between 10 to 100 times larger, it would be about 10 microns. It's not ordinary fine dust, but rather a substance larger than the common dust from any comet known so far. The result of this is that 0.7 of all the mass expelled after perihelion corresponds to these large particles, enough to seriously affect visibility. In other words, so much dust comes out so densely that the nucleus is practically dark even though it's close to the sun, and that allows it not to melt for the nucleus to survive. So to speak, the probability of sunlight scattering around the nucleus turns out to be on the order of 1. That is, right at the boundary between transparent and opaque. In the essay, he says, if P exceeds 1, the light doesn't reach the core, the activity should shut down, that's why it is reduced. So the core should measure approximately 1, 2, and 1/2 miles in a new measurement that is made based on this information. The interesting part, or the twist. The thing is, if the dust isn't accidental, if the dust isn't just a purely chemical reaction, it would mean that the dust is a kind of shield, let's say, or a kind of shield or camouflage, which would be even more incredible to think that it's camouflaging itself. From whom? From us or from someone else, he says. In this scenario, the real core could be smaller, about 7 kilometers, that would be another possibility, but it would be completely invisible to optical telescopes because of its own camouflage. He calls it extraordinary. It's the mathematical coincidence. The observed values place the system right at the critical point, which could be explained by natural self-regulation. In other words, it's at the exact point where it would show a kind of natural reaction. But what he says is that it seems like it's there on purpose to make it look as if the comet is natural. But when you see that the particles are bigger, well, that wouldn't make sense. It should already be, melted, or let's say disappeared, or at least broken apart. The object, he says, from the outside, even with high-resolution cameras, we wouldn't see the solid object, or it wouldn't be possible to see it simply because it's very dense. The cloud, let's say this curtain, so to speak, yes, literally a curtain of dust, so to speak, not smoke, but almost a curtain, right? The extraordinary thing, he says, is the mathematical coincidence is the issue of the size of the dust particles. In quotes, even with high-resolution cameras, he says, we wouldn't see the solid object, but rather a diffuse cloud, which explains why the clear edge of the nucleus isn't detected. So far, there isn't even clarity about the shape of the nucleus. There has been a lot of speculation about it. But what he says is that what we see as a bright mass is actually just dust. It's not. Even now, to this day, the nucleus hasn't been observed. Is that true? And that's a topic that also draws attention. Many images have been taken, and yes, of course, if you add contrast, any image of dust starts to form geometric shapes, the image, but not the reality. I mean, if you take something, even something that's just blurry or it's a cloud, if you raise the contrast too much, you'll see it start to form shapes. Especially if you take it with a dark background, like in the case of the tertiary, then what we're still seeing to this day is not the core. It would be really interesting if one of these cameras from the Chinese space probe Tianmen or the Mars probes had actually captured what the core looks like. It would be extraordinary to see what it's like. The telescopes that amateurs have. Even university observatories don't reach that level. They only see the glow, let's say the cloud, and barely manage to see a tiny dot, pretty much like the images we've seen. So we would need to have images or photos from the big agencies. For example, if the Chinese agency published high-resolution images, it would be ideal if National Aeronautics and Space Administration or European Space Agency also published those images. That would be amazing. It would be really great. It's not that this is a statement saying that just because of that information it's definitely not natural. It's not just one piece of information that stands out, but a series of anomalies. One by itself doesn't prove anything, but a lot of data at least makes you think. All those data points we discussed, the 15, 16, or however many anomalies, really add up, making you think it's something very different. But there are things missing, like for example the speed of the jet. That would be an ideal point. The speed of the jet would show if this is really a natural chemical reaction or if it's a reaction from something created, because a chemical reaction has speed limits. Do you know what this chemist sees with this? Its maximum reaction can only reach this speed, and that's it. There's no more. I mean, whether it's interstellar or not, that doesn't matter because you're under a chemical condition that's universal, right? But the problem is that up until now, they haven't wanted to publish the recent images, or rather the recent speed of the jet specifically. Well, you know, they haven't published practically anything of what they have. They've published very little information, which is totally atypical. It's not common, according to what astrophysicists and astronomers have been reporting. The usual thing is that it's published 1 or 2 weeks later. And especially when it's very new information, when it's about something maybe a bit exotic, unknown, but nothing more than that. They've had this information for months, but still haven't published it. So I also think we have to take that into account to understand this very curious, very interesting phenomenon. Also, at the end of the day, well, I thought they weren't going to publish anything I told them a while ago. A moment ago, we published a theory from a group, a series of viewpoints, let's say, and also some data analysis from a group. He said, I forgot the name. What is it? It's a group with all kinds of people, physicists, engineers, and more. And they come up with their theories from time to time. And well, when they're interesting, we publish them. I posted it on the Pepe Noticias channel if you want to see the report. Anyway, I'll make a summary later and upload it here too, but well, I thought it was interesting to mention it. I thought I wasn't going to release anything today. But at 4 in the afternoon, I mean about 50-something minutes ago, he published his latest point, which is this one. I mean, he's already made 3 posts about the dust, 3 or 4 posts specifically about the dust in these last few days, and all of them in a row. I think that's the point that's catching astrophysicist Loeb's attention the most right now. I was surprised that it was about the same topic again, and this theory that he had already mentioned, this idea that he thought this worked more like a shield, like this kind of cloud, but now, well, with more data. For example, the issue of size, right, which we've talked about. The cloud's density has kept it hidden from us until now. The core makes you think that nobody really knows. I mean, even though information has been given about its size, we still don't know, right? I mean, there really could be a big surprise there. Why? It could be 10 or 20 kilometers. We just don't know. I mean, he makes a calculation thinking 100 that it was natural, trying to justify it as much as possible. He says, well, it could be 1 to 4 kilometers. We don't know. I mean, it's still not clear. No. So that's the thing. That's the point there. And I mean, it's like really interesting at the end of the day, the publication. I know that sometimes there are people who, well, like always, not everyone is afraid of things. For example, I just read a comment and wasn't scared. I mean, suddenly they're afraid of certain things and they start insulting or they start getting really intense. If they're not interested, there are many other things to watch and analyze. But here we're talking about information based on data, based on what's really happening. And in any case, if we're talking about some kind of hypothesis, then it's mentioned that it's a hypothesis and that's it. At the end of the day, it's a channel open to thinking and open to reflecting, not to being closed-minded. Like suddenly there are people who decide to be that way, right? And that's also valid. It's not like it's wrong either. It's not that it's bad or anything, it's just the way it is. The bad thing is when people come and try to insult and all that, because then, well, it loses its meaning. Because, well, you say, what's the point? What do they call it, huh? What does it give you, right? I mean, as a human being to come and insult and start talking, I mean, it doesn't give you anything at all. No one takes you seriously. And at the end of the day, you just move on, right? Life goes on and you keep analyzing and reflecting. It's what grabs your attention, you enjoy it, want to talk about it, and that's just how it is, he says. The jets originate in the coma or diffuse the coma due to the object's own acceleration in its hyperbolic orbit. Only when there's an ejection of material it will come from the nucleus, he says. How have you been, Cesar? I'm well, thanks for asking. Greetings to you too. Who else is here? Doris, how are you? Greetings, Doris. Thank you very much for being a member of the channel. Anna is Anna, right? Anna 80, great to see you. How are you? Who else is out there? Marilu, how have you been? A big hello, thank you very much. Greetings, greetings. Who else is out there? Well, to the whole community. We'll come back later to see what else is happening with that topic. There are other important things happening in the world as well, so we'll surely be talking about them later. It's a channel, well, now it really is, for international news. Although we have done it, we have tried to follow up on the topic these past months. At least one post a day, sometimes two, sometimes not. There are posts from Atlas on the 3rd, but it's a topic that has interested us and that we promise to follow up on. Whatever happens, whether it's very interesting or not so much, but if it adds something, we analyze it here, we talk about it. Have an excellent day and excellent weekend. We're still here chatting. Tonight we'll be broadcasting, and if there's something urgent, we'll talk about it beforehand anyway, and we'll discuss it. So 8:30 is already around the corner. The link, by the way, we've posted the links for all the main live streams for the week. Just minutes earlier, the title changed depending on the upcoming information, but what's the point? Because a lot of people don't get the notification, so this way you can have the notification right there, perfect. You already know exactly the list of videos for all the upcoming live streams. At least a week, and we'll keep scheduling them up to a month or more ahead. So you already know that day, that time, there's the live stream, you just click there and that's it, you know? The title will eventually change based on current news and timing, right? Well, I hope you're all doing great. Have an excellent weekend. See you later. Goodbye.